Russian emergency teams have expanded the search zone at the Sinai plane crash site now to 40 square kilometres. For a fifth day, they're still trying to gather as much information as they can on that ill-fated Metrojet airliner. That plane crashed on Saturday, killing all 224 people on board. It's a painstaking operation. Drones have also been used too to try to get a wider view of that crash site and map the plane's debris. In fact, here's a panoramic view of that area to take a look at. Well, not far from the wreckage you're seeing there in the centre of the picture, you can also see the team's truck collecting the victims' belongings. And there are Egyptian forces, of course, guarding that site there nearby. Look a bit further on as well. You'll see those beige tents at the top right of the screen. They're the HQ of the Russian Emergency Ministry. Beside those, focusing in on the blue tents there, just to the right of them, next to them, that's where the journalists are working. And in those tents, one of those journalists, Roman Kossarov, he's got more on how the emergency team is carrying out the operation.
They begin their work very early in the morning. They get up about 6 a.m. and half an hour later or an hour later, they're gone.
Right.
They have to work under very extreme conditions. It gets very cool at night, 13 to 15 degrees Celsius, but it's very humid, so it gets very cold. Meanwhile, during the day, the temperatures get very extreme. It's 35 to 40 degrees. Basically, as soon as the sun rises in the morning, Russian Emergency Ministry workers just get up and leave, and they go through here. By the way, if you can notice, our camp is surrounded by some fortifications. That's done for our own security. We are guarded by the Egyptian army. Now, there are over 108 people working on this scene, and they have so far covered a distance of 28 square kilometers. This area has now been extended. Representatives of several countries are here, and they're working together with the Russian Emergencies Ministry.
Yeah, Roman Kossarov there. Well, an international team of investigators, as he was saying, is examining the plane's flight data and voice recorders too. This is what we know about that flight. On October the 31st, that Russian Metrojet aircraft departed from the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, we think as normal, at 3:51 in the morning GMT. About 20 minutes after that, it reached its cruising altitude, but at 4:13 in the morning, it then failed to make scheduled contact with air traffic control. And you look at the plot graph here. It's how the plane's altitude changed throughout that flight. After climbing above 10 kilometres, then it suddenly lost altitude and suddenly started falling very rapidly. Well, to discuss the existing versions of what could have brought it down, let's talk to Jerry Soyetman, an independent aviation consultant. Hi there, Jerry. Thanks for your thoughts and time here. It's still early days. The investigating teams, we've got Egypt on board, the Russians, and of course Ireland as well, because this plane was registered in Ireland, wasn't it? They're all looking at it. But the worry that it could have been an explosion is top amongst the list of what could have happened here. Do you think it could be an explosion by what you've seen?
Well, it's quite likely. I mean, we see the spread of the wreckage, which indicates that the the airplane may have come apart quite high. Now, there are various methods that can happen, which is one of them is structural failure. The other one is an explosion causing the structural failure. So, I mean, we had in the last 24 hours or so the news about the heat signatures that some of the intelligence satellites have captured, which indicate that it could have been an explosion, and rightly so. I mean,
if it's going to be an explosion, I guess the authorities are quickly going to find that out because amongst the debris, amongst all that fire, there would be traces of explosions, of explosives, of soot from that kind of thing. They'd be able to find that out quickly, yeah?
They should be, especially on the parts that are unburnt. They would have had traces of that. But again, an explosion does not mean that there has to be explosives on board. It could have been explosive decompression, structural failure, or those kind of things.
There's been mention about that tail strike a few years back when it was with another carrier, but of course repairs you'd think would be taken and undertaken to the manufacturer's standard. There had been that case in the past with that GEL 747 that had a tail strike and horrendous consequences in the end. But at the moment, again, that's being dismissed. If you were to put money on it, not saying you're a betting man, but if you were to, what do you think happened here?
From the way it looks, it does look like it is a structural failure. I mean, I've seen photographs of the tailplane itself, and where the aircraft's APU, the generator on the tail of the aircraft, I mean, those are separated. So it does look like, I mean, from what we see, that it is quite likely that it's a structural failure. But again, yes, it could still be explosives of other types. If you ask me where to put my money, I'm putting on structural failure at this very moment.
How long do you think it'll take the authorities to come out with some concrete evidence here? I mean, it looked like the voice recorder and also the data recorder, they looked on the surface to be in reasonable condition. How long will it be, do you think?
Well, they're going to come up with a report within 30 days anyway. As per the ICAO standards, they have to come up with an interim report of all the facts that have been gathered from the investigation so far. So they have about another 3.5 weeks to go on that before they have to come up with an interim report. Whether the Egyptian authorities are going to publish that or not, that's up to them. But,
such a terrible time for the relatives, of course, now. They're wanting answers about their loved ones just to try and get a bit of closure, to try to understand what's happened. Of course, if it does turn out, and it's only speculation, but if it does turn out that it was a bomb, huge implications about how that would have got on board via security, and of course huge implications as well for the Egyptian tourist industry, already under pressure, isn't it, of course. All right, then, well, thanks for being with us. We appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. That was Jerry Soyat-Man, the independent aviation analyst, on the line from Jakarta.